Good evening, students. So today we will start chapter 12, direct and inverse proportion. You can also say it direct and indirect variation. So let's start the topic. So the first is, before starting the topic, we have some common definitions regarding the direct and indirect variations. So first start with what is variation. If two quantities depend on each other in such a way that the change in one result in the corresponding change in the other, then the two quantities are said to be in variation. Let's take one example of daily life. More article will cost more. More money in bank, deposited in bank, more is the interest earned in fixed period. So these are some of the common examples of direct variation. It means that if one quantity is increases, then other quantity will increase. And if one quantity will decrease, then other quantity will automatically decrease. Now let's take some example of indirect variation. More speed of the car, less is the time taken to cover a fixed distance. More is the number of workers, less is the time taken to complete the work. So these are some examples of indirect variation. Now what is indirect variation? A variation in which both the quantities are not directly proportional to each other. It means that if x will increase, then y will decrease, or if x will decrease, then y will increase. So such type of relation is always persist in indirect variation. Okay, so let's start with the definition of direct variation. When two quantities x and y are said to be in direct proportion or variation, if whenever the value of x increases or decreases, the value of y increases or decreases in such a way that the ratio of x by y remains constant. Here you can see the example also, x1 by y1 is equals to x2 by y2 is equals to x3 by y3 is equals to infinite up to n terms is equals to k. It means that each and every terms, each and every ratio is always constant. Now let's take one example. A car covers 432 km in 36 liter of petrol. How much distance would it cover in 25 liters of petrol? So let the required distance be x. Then we have quantity of petrol is 36 and the distance covered is 432. Now the new quantity is 25 liters. So how much distance would it cover? You can see here that less is the quantity of petrol consumed, less will be the distance covered. So it is a direct proportion or direct variation. So indirect variation, we always know that what? X by y is always constant. So you can see the formula, 36 by 432 is equals to 25 by x. Upon calculating we get x equals to 300 kilometer. Now you can see, students, that in 36 liters of petrol the distance covered by the car is 432. So in 25 liters of petrol the distance covered by the car is 300 kilometer. So I think so you have understood this question. Now let's move on to our next question. So this is our next question. A train is moving at a uniform speed of 75 km per hour. Now how far it will travel in 24 minutes? And in how much time will it cover in 175 km? So this type of questions will be solved using direct proportion only. So here's the solution is, let the distance covered by the train in 24 minutes be x kilometer, and let it cover 75 kilometer in y minutes. Now we can make a chart, we can make a table. So according to the table, you can see here distance covered in kilometer divided by time taken in minutes is equals to 75 by 60, x by 24, 175 by y. So you can see here, since the speed is uniform, speed is not changing, so more distance will be covered in more time. So it is a case of direct proportion. So 75 by 60 will be equals to x by 24 will be equals to 175 by y. Upon calculating, we get x equals to 30. That means the distance covered by the train in 24 minutes will be 30 kilometer. Now you can calculate 30 by 24 divide by is equals to 175 by y. So you can calculate it and you will get the value of y also. So students, this calculation will be remain up to you. You just calculate it. I hope so you will get the answer. Now let's move on to our next question or next topic, that is inverse proportion or indirect proportion. So what is indirect variation? So when two quantities x and y are said to be in indirect or inverse proportion if x multiply y is equals to constant. It means that, yes, here it is already written, x1 into y1 must be equals to x2 into y2 must be equals to x3 into y3, that is will be equal to up to infinite terms, that will be is always a constant. So let's see one example of it so that you will get clear about it. If 45 men can do a piece of work in 49 days, in how many days will 35 men can do it? Now you can see here, student, that more number of workers are there, more number of men are there, and that's why less number of days is required. Now when the number of men will be decreased, automatically the number of days will be increased. So it is a case of inverse proportion. So here we will apply the formula, that is 45. I think so it is already written in the screen. 45 multiply 49 will be equals to 35 multiply x. So upon calculating, the answer is 63. So I think so you have understood the concept. Let's see one more question. If 14 workers can build a wall in 45 hours, how many workers will be required to do the same work in 35 hours? Now you can see here, students, that 14 workers are used to complete the work in 45 hours. It means that less number of workers are used, so that therefore, I am really very sorry, less number of workers are used, that's why the time get increased. Now in order to decrease the time, we have to employ more number of workers. So how much amount of workers we have to employ in order to complete the work in less time, it will be here in the solution part. So the table is number of workers upon number of hours. So number of workers is 14 and 45. Let the number of workers required to complete the work in 35 hours is x. So the table is this much, this one. 14 by 45 is equals to x, sorry, it's not 14 by 45, it is 14 multiply 45 is equals to x multiply 35. So I got the answer 18 upon calculating. So 18 number of workers are required in order to complete the work in 35 hours. I hope that you have understood the concept of direct and inverse proportion, students. Kindly solve exercise 12A and 12B in your classwork copy, and if you face any problem you can comment me in the comment box. Have a nice day students. Stay safe at home. Thank you.